Hi, my name is Bob Collins. I'm a painter. I have also done a lot of industrial design work, and I'm a teacher of fine art. As a child, I was involved in art right from the beginning, even when I was like 2 or 3 years old. And my mother used to bring me to the Worcester Art Museum for Saturday morning classes, which I loved. And for many years, I took those courses, and then I went to high school, where I was fortunate enough to study with Dorothy Bruce, who was a graduate of the Boston Museum School. And she had studied with a lot of famous people in the Boston art scene, and she was able to get me even further interested in drawing and painting, and I loved it, every minute of it. So much so that in my junior year I was accepted to the Boston Museum School. I chose, though, to go to Boston University because I loved a lot of the professors that were teaching there. They were very, very famous in Boston: Reed Kay, David Aronson, James Weeks, and those were people that I just was dying to study with. I loved them as a kid, looking at their work on Newbury Street, and hoped someday to actually have them as teachers, which I did. So that worked out great, and I stayed at Boston University and got my bachelor's degree, and I actually continued on to get my master's degree and taught for 2 years there while I was still at Boston University. After I left Boston University, I had my master's degree. I was offered a job at Southeastern Mass University. That's now UMass Dartmouth. And I taught there for a while, and then there were cutbacks in education. This was during the 80s, so that was there were one-year contracts, no benefits. So a lot of the teachers at SMU got into industrial design. They applied for these positions, and I ended up working at Hasbro Toy Company for several years, designing a lot of fun products. I was fortunate enough to work on My Little Pony, which to this day, I never hear the end of it. I did all the play sets, a lot of the accessories that the ponies wore, and a lot of the artwork that was used, and they were very sculptural forms, very fun to work on. I also worked on Gem, who was a punk rock doll that was very outrageous during the 80s, and worked on a lot of her play sets as well, and her accessories, got to do her jewelry. I worked in jewelry design for American Manufacturing for a few years, and ended up doing tabletop and photo frames for companies like Car Frames, and ended up working for Bradford Novelty, that does a lot of seasonal merchandise. And I was with them for about 16 years. And now the economy has shifted again, and there isn't as much work in industry, although I'm still freelancing out of my studio, keeping up with some of the accounts. My goal is shifted back into teaching again. My background as a teacher has been mainly focused on basic drawing, the fundamentals of drawing, drawing 2, where you get more complicated, involved with the figure and anatomy. And my painting background has been primarily your basic painting leading into advanced painting with abstraction. In the fall, I'll be teaching at the Brookline Arts Center. I'll be teaching an introduction course to abstract painting, which will be a fun course where the students will do, in an 8-week session, they'll do a painting each night, focusing on different aspects of abstract painting, different artists, and how they, still keeping everything moving from top to bottom and left to right. In the more advanced figure drawing classes, we get more involved with point relationships, getting very specific with where the points lay, the horizontal and vertical relationships, and the perspective that takes place in the figure. Perspective takes a key part in the advanced drawing. Here in the figure, everything has a top, a bottom, 4 sides, and we're trying to box this thing in and give it as much structure as possible. And the students work with very specific relationships, and I have them do a lot of analytical line drawing to make sure that they can actually get in there and depict the forms very simply with line. I also have them not use line at all and work strictly with light, so that there is no, the forms are defined just by the light source hitting the tops of each form. Here is another analytical line drawing where you can see everything as a front, a side, and a top. Top plane to the top of the torso, the arms, the legs, everything is broken down into top plane, side plane, top plane, side plane. And we work a lot with the anatomy and make a very strong figure as though we're going to be I like to tell students that draw it as though you're making a sculpture and have it have as much form as possible. Here we will occasionally work a little more atmospheric, where we let the atmosphere weave through the figure so that the light lays on these front planes and have the figure actually move in and out of the space. And you get a nice sense of volume in that kind of approach. What I'm working on now are these paintings that are very large abstractions. They're about 5 by 5 feet, and they're based on verticals, horizontals, and I've limited myself to reds, whites, and blacks. They're very graphic, and I've just shut myself in the studio and tried to make myself complete this body of work in between all the teaching and industrial design work. I showed a smaller version of these at the Du Bois Gallery in Newport. They had a lot of attention, and I just wanted to focus in on getting these completed. The Danforth Museum in Framingham is interested in showing them in the upcoming season. I'm excited about that. I've got about 10 of them going right about now, and then I also have some that are 3 by 3 foot as well. And I've been known for working rather small the last 10 years, so I decided to get the paint out and start painting very large and getting some attention for these things. And I think they'll make a beautiful show, and I think it's important that artists spend the time in their studio. Don't be in such a hurry to show the work. Take your time, get a beautiful body of work together, and then bring it around and show people, and you'll know when you're ready. I think the big mistake is people aren't ready a lot of times, and comes time to show the work and they've got 4 or 5 things going when they should have about 30 or 40 by that point. So try not to make that mistake. If people want to reach me, they can contact me by visiting my website, robertcollinspaintings.com. And I'll be teaching 3 courses at the Brookline Arts Center starting September 11th. Anatomy and figure drawing, just the head as a separate course, and abstract painting.